7:08. We have quorum, we're ready to go. Call to order. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Thank you, thank you. Public participation, 2 minutes.
Well, hang on.
Oh,
Sorry,
oh,
Your Honor.
I forgot it. Adoption of the agenda. You were slow.
You were fast. There is an additional on-table item that I'm just stamping right now. And that would be for resolution 9B. And it's called Food Truck for Art and Garden Festival.
Maybe food truck.
And then, yeah, I don't know if you want to say something about that.
Do you want me to just put it on the table when the time comes?
Yeah.
Okay.
30 hours.
Okay. All right, so any other amendments? CEO John, anything?
I don't have anything else.
We're good. Anybody else? Any changes, additions, deletions, going, gone? We are there. Public participation, 2 minutes each, however you are signed up. Oh, and there we are. It's Mrs. Azordian, followed by Mr. and then Vivian. Excuse me.
Excuse my cough, I'm not feeling well, but this is important, and I just wanted to talk to you about I've been here several times and talked about the parking lot issues in the Lower Calvin Grove. My last email was sent on March 25th to the village mayor and the council regarding some recommendations on providing some resolutions for the Lower Calvin Grove. Just last few days ago, on Saturday, we had such a nice weather, by the way, recently. We love it when the weather is great, but unfortunately we're miserable when the weather is great, as I always mentioned it. We had several RV came to the Lower Calvin Grove, and they took out their barbecue and little oven, and they start cooking right in front of our house. And we actually got to the point that the smoke and everything we thought is quite dangerous. So we went downstairs, even though we don't like to talk to the people come from outside. We told them this is not the right thing to do, and why are you doing this? And they literally said that there is a parking sign, green parking sign, kind of guide us to park here, and this is what we're doing, parking. And I think those 3 parking signs that has been installed in Lower Calvin Grove, inviting people from outside, and the weather is getting good, it's happening again very early this year. And in addition to that, several people are coming in with the fireplace wood log, big wood log, and they carry it to the beach, and they're creating beach fire. And I thought beach fire was illegal because it will create those wildfire. So those are the 2 major issues that we have recently observed, and I wanted to discuss that. And again, I'm not sure what has been done. The last email was sent on March 25th. I suggested that to install those signage back, that it says park hours was from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. And also install a barrier or chain, and also put some towing sign. All the sign that was there before that has been removed, and we still don't have any signage at all yet. So I would like to know what has been done since past few months, and I know I'm like a broken record. I appreciate you listening to me again, but I honestly would like to know what has been done. These are not major issues and can be done hopefully quickly to resolve these issues that could provide other major issues like wildfire or disturbance of the neighbors in the Lower Calvin Grove.
Sure.
I just wanted to know why nothing's been happening.
Did you want to do this with the parking stuff, or just receive the information?
I think that's all good information to receive and look into some of these things. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
We're just going to receive the information from.
Okay, so when do we get the resolution?
Sorry, the what?
I would like to know, honestly, we keep coming over here. I don't want to be mad, I don't want to get out of temper, but it's this, we constantly kind of repeat ourselves. And I know all of you are working hard together and you have prioritized issues, but I just want to know, where are these issues in your priority list and when it's going to be done?
We're addressing the parking issues all over the village with a view to getting ready for the long weekend coming up. So the Public Works Manager and I will review your comments and talk about some of the things that you brought up and see how that fits in with some of the plans that we have to get ready for the long weekend and for the season ahead.
Thank you, Peter, but I'm sure those signages still exist, it's just a matter of installation, because all the signs that were there before, it provided some sort of bylaws, and right now, I feel like we're bringing all the people to the village from outside without, considerations about, residents of the Lower Kelvin Grove. So all we're asking is at least install the sign for now until we decide on the barriers for the Lower Kelvin Grove.
Yeah, we'll have to review what signs were there and what signs have come out and why and what needs to be present. So that's a conversation that I'll have with Public Works Manager.
Peter, is it possible at least to remove those guidance for the parking so people with this big RVs finding the parking place? Literally from when they get off the highway, the parking signs are there, so it invites them to the Lower Kelvin Grove.
Yeah, that's actually the purpose, is to tell people where they're supposed to park. If you go into any community, most communities will have directional signage as to where where public is allowed to
I
park.
understand that, but
Yeah, so
honestly,
that's the reason it's there.
Yeah, but you're inviting the outsider and with these issues. I mean, does there have to be a fire there one day for it to be presented? All we're asking is, this is for the residents of Lions Bay. It's not for RVs to come and park there and party in the Lower Kelvin Grove. And this happens constantly. It's not one time, twice. It happens all the time.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying about the RVs and the issues that they present, and we will have a discussion about how we address that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sordigan here, next up.
I would like to participate as a resident of the Lions Bay to the council meeting and ask him, Mr. Peter Dijon, could you please tell me that why we have that signage parking? It means that we have a few beautiful naked ladies and ask the people come over there. Why we have that signage that it bothered my life and no reason? Take it off, please. That's the bottom line. Researching and just talking about that consideration. How many times I have to be here and my wife that she's so much sick, 1 week stay at home and just still nothing happened?
So the same.
If you tell me that why we have to that signage for the small parking lot. Thank you.
Yeah,
Would you
the
please-
same signage exists to direct traffic to the Lions Bay
Which
Beach.
traffic? The people
No,
that
the
are
Lions
coming
Bay.
from just any part of the town, coming with, welcome here for what? To a small parking lot that we have many people in Lions that they want to park and go to enjoy themselves, and we are there, and they coming over to enjoy themselves, but we pay for the tax, and they come over there for no reason. I know what's that. I'm explaining to you all the council. Don't please talk about the cloud.
All right, can be, so we're gonna.
One more thing that I have to say, sorry for that. Back and forth, 8 years, and maybe 10 years, that the only person who knows how long is this gentleman, because he's from the beginning of any council, he was here. That we back and forth, we try to make the bylaw or anything that you're talking about for filming. And filming, nothing happened yet. It must be back to the origin. That 8 years, we fight for that, and one corrupted person with the name of Bear Carl, whatever which is it, that he desired to change it for something else for 10%, which is not right.
So I think.
It has to go back to that.
All right, and did you want to respond, or should we move on?
I think that you're aware that there's going to be a public consultation
No,
process
not,
with respect to.
excuse me. This is the wrong path that you are going. The public that they are not living there, the filming in the area that this lady or this gentleman is living, this is depend to the immediate people that impacted, not the others.
Yeah,
Okay?
there will be a public consultation process in which the residents of Lions Bay will have an
No.
opportunity,
It should
yourself
be,
included, sir.
we had, no. You know, you are not living in here, and you are not the one that will make a decision, the council make a decision. Let me tell you. The immediate, the other bylaw was indicated that immediate impacted, because they are impacted, not the other people that they are living somewhere else.
Right,
It has to
Canby.
go back to the,
got
back to the origin, please.
Right, Camby's, thank you.
I don't want to be here anymore. I would like just get the resolution.
I believe what CEO De Jong has told you is that we're going to go to public consultation. on
No, it's not right. Because you know that 10 years.
Camby's,
Sorry for
this
that.
isn't an interactive part now.
No, it's not. 10 years we came here for that small part to make it as impacted, immediate impacted, not anybody else. If, for example, this gentleman living somewhere else, he doesn't impact it because it's not
Right.
something impacted on his life. It impacted in our life. And Peter is not the person who can make a decision because he's not living in here anymore.
All right.
In here, of course.
We're being as courteous as I can, Camby's. It's time to move on.
Do something, please.
Thank you.
I
Next up,
appreciate if you do something and no one can answer to my wife that why we have that silent. Because we want to tell them that where is the parking? Come over here, make it crowded, and what do you want to do? But I pay taxes, not them.
all right, Camby's, we're done.
Sorry that I'm very angry, because I saw that the people doing whatever I have the picture.
Okay,
Do
thank
wanna
you very
see that
much.
anymore?
Vivian, next up.
Thank you. My name is Vivian O'Keefe. I'm from 70 Alvey Place. I'm following up to a tree committee meeting that was held at 60 Alvey Place last Thursday. I have 3 requests for council to consider. I was in attendance at the meeting. My first request is that I, as 70 Alvey Place resident, and the person who lives there, be consulted when the topping of the trees occur. If I could, I would like to make sure that I am at home, to make sure that there's no misunderstanding as to what trees on the right of way are the trees on the right of way being topped and not my trees on my property being topped. So I just want to make sure that will happen. The second thing I would like to bring to council is at the end of the meeting, at the wrap up of the meeting, the chairperson volunteered to grant the tree permit on the right of way in perpetuity. I was taken aback at this because those trees are very important for the stability of the slope. And you know, if somebody comes in and viciously tops those trees like that has happened with previous owners, that has an impact on the life of that tree, and those trees are very important, as I said earlier, for the stability of the slope. I'd like you to consider that. And my third request is, the chairperson of the tree committee specified that no trees will be topped during the bird nesting season, according to the bylaw 393/2007. And everybody in attendance to the meeting unanimously agreed. So when the email came out on Friday that this was going to be brought forward to council and that an arborist could be brought in and a decision to cut a tree would be based on arborist assessment of whether there was birds nesting in that tree or not. So to wrap up and to summarize, I'd like to ask you 3 things: that I will be consulted as to when the topping of the trees would occur on the right of way. That was, instead of being advised, that we all agreed upon at the meeting. The second thing is that there'll be no topping of the trees during bird nesting season, that we all agreed upon. And the third thing is I'm not comfortable with the concept of granting tree topping or cutting in perpetuity, because trees are very important. We're on a slope, as we've all been, I've participated in many meetings here, and we discussed the impact of the slope and the stability of the slope. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk to you.
I just don't really,
Appreciate it.
so I just, your street address again is?
70.
Okay. And just to put some clarity to this, Vivian, so if the person who's going to cut the trees calls the tree faller person and they give a date, it's like when the faller says, I'm coming on this day, is that the kind of information you're
Yeah,
looking
that's
for?
it. Just, I want to make sure I'm at home. That's all I'm asking for.
And you've got some flexibility about
I
that?
work from home.
Okay, so-
Unless sometimes I have a meeting out of the office or something, but I arrange everything.
Okay, so.
I just requested, I just don't want to get something if I'm out
Okay.
of the country and it's in my
So,
mailbox.
and
then
you're
they
not-
come back and they have
No, and
annihilated
so
it.
you're not flying to Mexico in the next little while, okay, so
No,
that's fine.
No, not at all.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for the
Um,
opportunity to talk to you.
Thank you so much, but I'm sorry that I become a little bit emotional, but I have to say that all the administration, they are coming to improve, not cause the problem. The problem is the signage, the parking, that we are very, it impacted in our life, and also please do something about the feeling.
Thank you very
Thank
much. Do you want to ramp to the tree stuff ahead, or do you want to do it in sequence?
That's up to you. You can jump ahead if you like.
Let's work with the gallery. If it's fine with council, we'll accelerate the Trees, Views, and Landscape Committee application, which is item
D1,
H,
D1,
D1
page 147.
on page 147. We can deal with that now. That's fine. Peter, are you going to go with this to start?
Not sure. This recommendation from the tree committee recommends to council that the applicant be permitted to cut down hemlocks but not the Japanese cedar, clean up and remove associated debris. Secondly, as requested, maintenance of the trees in the right-of-way between 60 and 70 Isleview was recommended to be approved in perpetuity. The village has the right to review this at any time in the future. As a courtesy, on every occasion that work will be carried out, the applicant agreed to contact the neighbor at 70 Isleview, clean up and associated debris. So from a staff perspective, staff is not in favor of granting these kinds of orders in perpetuity. I'm not sure that council could even do that. In the past, the most that has been recommended and that council has granted is to have a 3-year period where the applicant is given permission to annually cut within that period in accordance with the application and the photographs in the application, generally limited to the previous tree topping heights. So the recommended resolution that staff has drafted is essentially that upon receipt of the following requirements: A, the $500 damage deposit; B, the name of the arborist contractor; C, proof of insurance as required by our bylaw; and D, WorkSafe certification as required. The applicant be permitted to cut down the hemlock trees identified in application 93, which are on municipal property, but not the Japanese cedar. 2, carry out tree topping work for the trees in the right-of-way between 60 and 70 Isleview Place as requested in application 93 in accordance with the captioned photographs submitted with the application and subject to limiting topping heights to the topping heights previously approved and implemented. B, that part 2 of tree cutting permit number 93 may be repeated annually until October 15th of 2022, subject only to confirmation prior to any cutting of A, notification of the neighbors at 60 and 70 Isleview Place, B, an acceptable traffic control plan, and C, proof of insurance. Oh, that was already prior to, oh, but that's, yeah, annual, so still need to provide the proof of insurance, work safe BC requirements and damage deposit. And that council reserves the right to amend or cancel the term of the permit at any time. And finally, that the applicant must clean up and remove all associated with the permissions granted by tree cutting permit number 93. So the only thing that wasn't in there that Ms. O'Keefe referred to was requiring an arborist to confirm that there were no nests in the trees prior to cutting. So that would be something that we could add to this if that was indeed what was discussed at the committee meeting.
Sort of read off the top, what is the cut period for?
I can't remember off the top of my head.
July 31st. March 1st to July 31st. And that's in the 2007.
Thank you very much.
So during that period, I think an arborist is required to confirm. Outside that period, they're not, I think.
Yeah, that's correct.
Right.
That's my understanding of it.
So we could add a term of the resolution, or the recommended resolution, that any cutting within the period March 1 to July 1st, is it?
31st.
31st, require an arborist to confirm there's no nesting.
Almost 15 in most other regions, by the way, but for some reason, maybe it's warmer down here, it could be July 31st. I'm very familiar with tree windows in my business.
Mhm.
Is that within an arborist's scope of understanding? Is that a fact, like that they actually can do that assessment?
Yeah, I don't know, is that an arborist who does that, or is that
I have
a
similar
bird
questions
expert?
about, yeah, I don't know that arborist is the right person, but I did look at our bylaw when I saw this coming up.
Mhm.
Qualifies arborist by being registered by two organizations. So it's quite clear that this is just not any guy that's got a diploma in chainsaw. So you'd assume that it's a professional person if he understands what he's certifying.
Mhm.
Personally, I don't know that you could pay enough money to have someone survey that number of trees and confirm there's no bird nesting. Sounds like it's virtually impossible.
Mm.
So I personally think if you if you ask people to comply with our bylaw and do it properly, and you had more than one tree we're trying to take down, you'd be back to the old bylaw that said no tree cutting permits would be issued during the bird wing, which was where it was originally recommended by the tree committee.
Mm.
Personally, I think that's the way it should be, but it probably amounts to the same thing if we enforce it. I also don't understand how you do that. So this guy's going to get a permit, but if he's going to certify there's no birds in those trees, he has to do it the day of or the next day. And if you look at these pictures, he's basically going to be on board going ahead of the guy with the chainsaw for 3 or 4 days. So it sounds like you'd be better off just doing it outside the bird window, but I guess we can only go with what the Bible says as long as we write that it has to be strictly enforced.
Sorry, excuse me, but Mr. Dodd was very clear that he volunteered, that he was not wanting to do it during we all agreed unanimously that we were not wanting to do any tree topping or cutting during bird nesting
All right,
season.
July 31st it is.
I mean, everyone was clear. I just want to speak up for the birds.
No, thank you very much, Vivian. That's
I love it.
July 31st it is. Or during bird,
So,
not March 1st to July 31st.
okay.
Peter, could you read the change, and then I'll put the motion?
So
I don't want to read the whole thing. The only
Just
change.
the amendment.
could I just have one other suggested amendment? I'm not sure that the way it read, which reads better than the way it's written here, still gave Ms. O'Keefe the protection she needed around the consultation. it says notification. The
Mhm.
notification could be, you know, the day before, an hour before, after the event. Oops, sorry, I dropped a car in your mailbox, you didn't see it. I think she's looking for consultation and an agreement, she's there on the date. So can we change that to consultation or by agreed, at an agreed time or something that gives a... Because all it says is notification.
Well, I mean, I was at the roadside, the neighborhood appears very cohesive in terms of what they're trying to do, so I think in the case of Mr. Dodd, I think he wants to play ball here, so shall we say not less than 2 days' notice kind of thing?
Something like that, yeah. I was thinking...
But 2 days notice,
Yeah, I mean, that's...
2 days' notice is lots?
If you could give me more would be great, like a week would be great, because then at least I'm not out of town.
A week it is?
Thank you.
Getting your own custom resolution out of this, Vivian.
It's for the birds.
Yeah.
All right. So the changes were on the bird part and the notification?
Yeah. Okay, so near the beginning of the resolution, where after the standard requirements regarding damage deposit and so forth, we begin with the applicant is permitted to, and that will apply to the initial cutting and the annual cutting. So I've added the applicant is permitted outside of the period March 1 to July 31 to, and then into the resolution. The second part of the initial cutting resolution, I've added at the very beginning as a precedent, subject to notification per Part B, subsection A of this resolution. So that's the part down below regarding the annual notice, where we've said 1 week notification of neighbors at 60 and 70, I'll say 1 week prior notification of the neighbors at 60 and 70 Islandview Place, so that that's incorporated into the initial cutting as well.
Thank you very much. I'll put forward the motion, we'll do it, and we'll come back to discussion before we go. Motion, I'll do it as amended. Thank you. Second, any discussion? Yes?
Just a question. Maybe this is obvious to everybody else, but there's a discussion about chopping the hemlocks down, and there's also a discussion of topping. Is it both happening, or one or the other?
There's actually two separate areas associated with this application. There's trees in front of 60 that I think relates to the hemlocks, if I'm not mistaken. And probably the Japanese cedar that I didn't know about. And then the other part is in the right-of-way between 60 and 70.
Okay, so the ones that are coming out aren't going to interfere with the stability of the soil that's established?
It's all been blessed by Public Works.
It is?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
The right-of-way area is the steep area that people are concerned about.
Okay. Further questions? Yes?
Is there any questions? I just have a comment. I find it very heartwarming what you're doing, and I think that kind of advocacy sort of makes me coming here, makes it worthwhile to see that sort of thing. So I appreciate it, and it makes me hopeful that people are out there actually protecting the things that matter. So thanks for doing that. Thanks for coming forward. Appreciate it.
What a feel-good kind of guy.
Hey, well.
Good. Thank you very much, Councillor Parmenter. Thank you very much, Peter, for amending this very significantly from what the rest of council had not seen earlier today. Okay, call a motion. All in favor? Done. Approved. Vivian, you're done.
And the birds, chirp, chirp.
There you go. Well, that's great. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for your flexibility in moving that to the front, and thank you, CAO Dion, for amending that so significantly that it can get through here. Okay, public delegation. Please no, thank you, good. Review and approval of the minutes. May the 7th, are there any changes? I have one, which is on page 10 of 214. And Shauna will give you the page in a second. And it's on the bottom two items, which is the MLA and MP meetings. And I would have it amended to show that the mayor and then delete spoke with both the MLA and then we'll be speaking with the MLA and MP. And on the TransLink meeting below, it would be the mayor met with TransLink and the other 3 smaller communities. And on the last sentence, strike agreed and mark the word considered. And there you go. I have no other changes. Anybody else? Yes.
Top of page 13. The council approved $1,000 for temporary washing of the travellers May until September. When it was first read out, it was the word for a trial period, or was actually mentioned. I know we've limited the time, but should we put down this as a trial, and it's not something that's going to be necessarily done every year?
Could expire in September no matter what. How you consider it, whether it's a,
You just used the
Trial.
word as a trial, that was all.
okay.
Straight temporary for trial? Is that fine?
Well, it's still a temporary washing.
All right,
but,
well, sorry, yes, it is.
For a trial period from May till,
Perfect. Anything else,
It's
Councillor
a
Abbott?
resolution, do we have to rescind it?
Pardon me?
It's a resolution though, do we have to rescind the resolution?
Alrighty.
it's, I think this is a correction to what the resolution was.
Yes,
Okay.
the word trial was used.
Change
Can you
the.
repeat the change, please?
Okay. Anything else? We'll do it the other way. Can I have a motion to accept the minutes as amended? Thank you. Second. Any discussion, any further changes? Going, all in favor as amended? Thank you. Done fast. We'll pause for a minute. There we go. Pass that, Shauna, thank you. Business arising from the minutes. I had none. Anybody else? Didn't see anything that was not in process somewhere else.
No, I was business arising on the idea of the survey for the communications, but I think I'll leave it. I'll get to it another time.
It's very generous of you, thank you.
And then I had a question. I didn't write down what time the Canada Day presentation was going to be. We got there fireworks at 9:30. I thought I might have heard 7 o'clock, but I don't recall exactly.
I may have said 7, but I think the events committee is going to do a rollout and notify the community of the changes that are occurring in the timetable.
Okay, it's just one of the people involved asked me what time it was. We're second. We'll wait for it to come out.
I've communicated with them, they're gonna roll it out in the village update.
Wasn't it 5 or something?
I don't
It's
know,
being determined yet exactly.
I think it's still a moving target for them. Okay, Councillor Abbott, you're good? Councillor C, you're fine, no changes, good, thank you. No other changes, all in favor, as amended, thank you, going, sorry, business arising, all finished, there we go. Unfinished business, catch myself here. Oh, look who's got the first 2.
So 76 is just in progress. I think we talked about what will happen next there last meeting.
Thank you.
83 is, that's on my long list. 88 is Councillor Abbott.
Just want to bounce something off CEO or the mayor or the experienced council as much as anyone. So I have had further communications with the 3 residents that have been involved in this program before, 2 of whom happen to be ex-councillors, as well as previous Mayor Miller, who submitted something to the Utilities Commission. One of the suggestions was that maybe the only way to get any success of this, and maybe this is something that went through the UCB, and that will be a lot of other BC communities that are in similar situations outside of Lower Mainland, outside of Metro. Does that sound like the place? I mean, I know there'll be some work and stuff to do, and I can do some legwork, but does that sound like the right place to maybe, because it sounds like another letter to the Utilities Commission is going to get the same result.
Usually they tend to go with stuff that kind of resonates with a lot of folks,
Mhm.
and I'm not sure.
I could maybe get someone to weave some public interest somehow and get a lot of
Well,
folks resonating.
you have to qualify it to make it to a vote at UBCM, so there's got to be an interest to even present it.
Okay. Well, it was Doug Miller, who in his term went to all the UBCM meetings, that thought this was a place that might attract him. So, I mean, he has some experience of that. Granted, you people have
Yeah.
much.
This is out of my depth,
Do you
CAO.
want to park it and discuss it another time?
Yeah, I think it's something that we can give some thought to. I think that we're not the first ones to talk about
Mhm.
getting BC Hydro to change the tier system,
Yeah,
particularly those who live in northern regions of the province.
and don't have gas.
I think, that's, it's pushing that rock uphill, and whether or not UBCM is going to help push it to the right place where everybody's kind of happy, I don't know, I mean, that's...
Just with, with the current climate action focus, a lot of people have Site Cs coming online in a couple of years. If there's ever a time to do it, it's probably now.
Mm.
But I think it's a bigger thing than us just
Oh, for sure, yeah.
sending some of the utilities
Yeah.
commissions.
So I will give that some thought and look into what that would look like, or could look like.
UBCM's in September. So-
Yeah, but we're coming up on deadlines, I think, for resolutions.
You're going to come up for recommendations before then, so
Yeah, it might even be,
passed.
might be.
It'd be
We'll
close,
have to
it'd be
take a
close, if, at best, it'd be close. Okay, so we're gonna leave, Councillor Abbott will park this with the CAO for now. Mr. Jaffer,
No action yet.
Thank-
Working with the fire chief to inspect the area.
good, thank you. Councillor Cunliffe,
In progress. In progress.
thank you. CAO, which I've seen the letter.
Yeah, so a letter has been drafted in respect of number 93, and for the mayor's consideration, and...
The mayor has considered, he's just ready to sign it now. All right, let's call that one a done and a strike, Sharon. And, Yoho's.
That's been done.
Done,
So I've
thank you.
replied, and she's very appreciative of the response.
There we go. Good, all right. Item 8, staff reports. Request for decision number 1, Brunswick Beach Road encroachment application.
So, this is an application by the owner of number 1 Brunswick Beach Road. This involves the discovery of a deck structure which was being reconstructed 2 or 3 weeks ago. And it's situated wholly on the esplanade beyond the property in question. It's being reconstructed, or been reconstructed substantially on the old rotting pilings that it was originally built on. I guess the decking material had rotted, and in fact I think the owner had an accident going through those materials, and which led to the necessity of reconstructing it. So the building inspector came upon the situation and brought it to the attention of myself, and we discussed what was required. That was conveyed to the property owner who submitted the request for an encroachment agreement. Upon looking further into our file materials with respect to sort of period 2000 to 2004, just after Brunswick Beach came into the village, there were a number of public meetings and discussions about what requirements would be for structures that were encroaching either on the highway, the different roadways, or on the esplanade. And ultimately there was the adoption by council in 2004 of the encroachment policy that you see in the materials. And the form of encroachment agreement at that time and the Section 219 covenant are not substantially different from what appears in your materials now. Those are now updated documents through our current legal counsel, and the documents that we use on encroachment agreements over the last couple of years. We don't always do a Section 219 covenant. That's where either infrastructure may be impacted or an encroachment is of a substantial nature within public or on public lands. So what we have actually, when I went through the file materials, there was actually an encroachment agreement drafted for this property back in 2003 or 4, but it was never signed, and it related only to the garage, which is situated wholly within the roadway at the end of Brunswick Beach Road. There was no mention of the deck, but that, as I've mentioned, is situated entirely on the esplanade. Staff's recommendation is that council consider granting an encroachment agreement in respect of both the sun deck and the carport for as long as the property owner, the current property owner, owns the property or is alive to enjoy it, after which time those items ought to be removed from municipal lands. And that's what the recommended resolution would be, and that's more or less what the encroachment agreements would be drafted to implement.
Good, and we'll come back to you, Theo. Can I have a motion? The resolution's before you on the agenda, page 2 of 214. Can I have a motion? Second, go to discussion after the second. Thank you. Any discussion? Yes, Councillor Abbott?
A few things. Sorry, Peter, so this covenant 219 that we've got in this document is dated 1st of September 2017. So what happened in 2017 that caused this to be written?
Sorry, which are you looking at? Are you looking at the standard agreement?
Yeah.
Oh, that's just when this is just a standard form. Hasn't been prepped for this particular owner at this particular time.
Oh.
This is just
Template.
a template document.
Oh, it says,
So-
because it says residing at 1 Brunswick Beach.
Yeah, I
Road.
started to do it and I didn't have time.
So nothing happened in
We only
September
had,
2017?
no,
Okay, I
nothing
thought
happened
thought I'd
there,
missed
sorry.
something.
Yeah, sorry about that.
All right, I've got a few other questions about when we grant this agreement. So when you grant these agreements, first of all, it says it has to comply with all building codes and other bylaws, rules that are in place. It says that in there. The deck, as it's now been constructed, because I get it, they didn't stop work, they kept working, and it's now finished. That can't possibly meet building codes, right?
Well, so the building inspector hasn't assessed whether or not the structure, the deck structure can meet current building code, or whether it would need to meet current building code, or as it's a reconstruction, whether it might get away with using the code that was in place at the time that it was originally constructed. I'm not entirely sure about that, but I think that from my perspective, my recommendation would be not to get hung up on building code, but to rather rely upon the building inspector's assessment of what steps would be necessary to make the structure safe. So, for example, it should have a railing to prevent someone from falling off the edge. Anything else that he may suggest is required in order to make the structure safe.
Okay, so the other thing I'm acutely aware of, having built a cabin in the last few years, is the RAR, riparian.
Sorry, what?
RAR, riparian areas and regulations, which says that you can't build anything within 43 feet of the high water mark. So would it even be permitted? I mean, would that have to be applied?
I think I'm not sure about the high water mark. I thought it was a riparian area related to water courses, and the ocean is not a water course.
No, there's an part of the act about the water course. I know I have to position my cabin about as close as I could to the water. I'm sure it was out of the RAR that we had to comply with that. And I guess my question just generally is, we're going to grant something, but if I read through what we're granting, it says that you have to meet these other regulations. So we're granting something that the owner really can't comply with, is what we're doing. In my assessment, and I'm not the expert, and so building inspectors, other people to do that.
I take what you're saying.
We are granting them something that really they can't comply with. We should make them aware of that, I think, at the very least.
Yeah, or amend it such that we're really speaking to what can be complied with and what ought to be complied with.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
So, and the other thing, I think there's old materials down there, career-side pilings and stuff, which nowadays you wouldn't be allowed to use, but...
Yeah, those are embedded and, probably 30, 40 years old.
So there's all these reasons why you can't bring this up to code compliance.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Right. So, yeah, I think that you're right in terms of having something in an agreement that requires compliance with laws that can't possibly be complied with. So that would have to be addressed and probably removed and narrowed down to what we would want complied with.
But generally speaking, your recommendation is to make this a possibility. To make maintaining and retaining these structures a possibility for the period involved. That's the intent, right?
That's the intent, and in part because it also addresses not only the deck but also the carport, which never got addressed in 2004.
So where would the amendment on the conforming to things that couldn't be conformed to?
I think that council would have to direct staff to amend the agreement such that requirements pertaining to safety issues were to be complied with and enforced, and remove the references to everything else that can't possibly be complied with.
I have one more question. And this is just me thinking because I'm curious, but what happens at the end of this period? How does remediation removal get enforced once the transfers to no owner? Stuff that's outside of their property line, how do you ensure that gets removed properly?
Well, the Section 219 covenant would be registered on title, so any potential purchaser would have notice and would have to, any current purchaser would speak with the municipality about what does this mean, and we would have to make sure that it got removed, and that the owner would have, the purchaser would have to understand that it's not going to be, or that it's not going to be part of, it's not going to be a benefit of the property if they purchase it. So, yeah, I mean, that, those provisions, actually, I think sorry, it's been a few days since doing this, but it may actually be up to the property owner to remove it, or,
That's what I'm
but we would enforce and have rights of collection on that, so.
Can I just interrupt for a second? I think we have the property owner here.
Do you mind if I just interject for one moment? I have a copy of my encroachment, and I have the receipt for the money that I paid for it, 2004, for my carport. I don't have one for the deck. And so just so that you know, I do have that. But for the deck, that's another issue. But my deck, 30 seconds or less, we have not increased the area of it all. It actually is smaller than the original one, for the very reason that I'm very cognizant that one does not encroach. But because it was already there and the boards were rotting, my son replaced them. And yes, it looks lovely because the boards are all new. But I have my plants on there now. So it's kind of all hidden. But we have not increased the area of it, nor have we encroached onto any further area outside of the original footprint of that deck.
My apologies for not finding your document.
Well, I understood that Lions Bay lost a few documents a few years ago, but we've all lost a few things over the years, so it's okay. No, that's why it's important to keep a hold of. Anyway.
Thank you. Just on the discussion thing, so if we were to proceed, rather than having you take it away on the resolution, which is first B, would it be sign an encroachment agreement amended as discussed? Would that be satisfactory to you?
Sorry, where are you?
Right on B?
No. Oh, I think just strike the word deck, sorry, carport.
I thought this was what,
Oh, no.
The other stuff.
Yeah, the other stuff, yeah. Respect of the.
amended as discussed?
Yeah,
You're on
the
tape.
discussion is on record.
Okay.
All right. And so C would also be amended to strike in the carport. Actually, would it be possible for me to have a look at your, and to obtain a copy of it?
It isn't, okay, sure. I wanted to.
They won't use it twice.
No, everything. I thought this was just a copy of the original one, so this was just my unsigned copy.
Your unregistered copy.
Yeah.
But this was never registered on title. And because it would be on your title, but it's not on your title. So this is just the section 219.
I don't know. My husband died around bring that so I didn't excuse me. Something's got lost in translation. I'm willing to sign, of course.
So I'm not sure that any agreement was ever registered.
Would it not
That
be
was our
prudent
understanding.
to include the garage in the revised
Yeah,
agreement?
I think that it has to be investigated further.
Okay,
So.
table this. Yes?
Yeah, I mean, I
mean,
I think it would be helpful to have council's direction. And I think that, you know, I'm almost 100% that it has not been registered. So it would have to include the carport as well. And if it is registered, then we simply wouldn't repeat that process. But I think that aside from the amendments regarding safety and compliance with whatever safety requirements the building inspector advises are required, that the rest of it should probably stand as is, subject only to not doing something unnecessary if it's already been registered. So.
Well, I'm sure you wouldn't do anything unnecessary. So, if the change that I would have, if I can run it past you, is on B, sign an encroachment agreement amended as discussed with respect to safety and compliance.
Mm-hmm.
All else stands?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
Yep, good. Any further discussion? Call a motion, all in favor? Yes, unanimous, thank you. All right. You're done on that one, thank you. The information report on the parking plan on page 47.
Okay, so what we have here is just an update for council with respect to where we're at for parking plan considerations for 2019. Previously, council was asked about their preferences on transferable or non-transferable parking permits, and the feedback was that transferable was preferable, and if it was feasible to have them be non-expiring or go for a long time. So we've done the research on that and concluded that we think it would be best to limit it to a 3-year trial period, see how you know, they could be faded after 3 years. We've got materials that address the previous issue of bleeding onto windshields, and then the other issue was visibility. So we've got a white backing now on the draft permit that's been ordered now, and we put a 3-year time limit on just to make sure that we've got a still a good looking sticker after 3 years, and then we can deal with how we want to go forward at that point. In terms of metered parking, the meters actually were installed today, and the parking lot is, the Lions Bay Beach parking lot is under construction at the moment. The drainage has been finished, and fencing is going to happen.
Posts were installed today.
Okay.
Paving crew is coming in tomorrow to do a regrading of the lot and compaction. And then as soon as we get some good weather, they'll come and pave, but probably not until the week after the long weekend.
The rates on the parking are as set out in the report and in the fees bylaw amendment that we saw last week, and it's back for adoption today. And the bylaw officers underwent some training last Friday, and will be starting this coming long weekend. We're fortunate to have the same two fellows that we had last year, who were excellent. And similarly, the Sunset Trail headlot is that going to be graded and compacted too, I presume? Or is it ready to go?
It needs to be saw cut. It's pretty much ready to go.
Okay. And Public Works staff also receiving some training in respect of ticketing, and will be carrying ticket books in their vehicles per the amendments that you also have in this package for them to have that ability. Bearing in mind, of course, that it's not intended that this be a key function of their jobs. It's if an emergency comes up, or if if they're driving past a problem area that's a chronic problem area, and there's something they can do about it, then we've got that opportunity. Apart from that, the other attachment to the report is the draft language that will be uploaded shortly to the website for parking, and providing an update to all that material. There's a couple of tweaks still, I think, that I've noticed, but we'll have a new, as you can see from the materials as well, there's a new parking app that people can use on their phones instead of trying to use a credit card or coins. So yeah, we're getting very close to being ready to go.
Good. Any discussion? Yes?
One question I have is about the parking permits. It says that 2 will be issued with possible 3-year expiration date. But I'm kind of wondering, is that going to be every year with your taxes you get 2 more?
No.
So how would we know for a new resident, when they come in, they would just get 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll come into the office and we give a new resident 2 permits free, and then if they require additional, then they're $40 each.
Gotcha.
And they do that now. We still, even within the year, we get new residents, and then they come in, and then we just give them 2 free.
Fred, just so there's, when I bought my house, I actually had the parking permits were part of the key handover, so they were included, so I actually had them for the balance of the year. But that's another option, right?
Mhm.
Actually,
Right now that they're removable again.
Yeah.
Okay. Question for me on the congratulations on retaining the bylaw officers. If you could give me a sense of what their day looks like, and when do they leave, and do they do later evening enforcement?
Yeah.
You mean their hours?
Pardon?
Their hours, you mean?
Yes.
So it's 2:30 to, I have
11,
to
I
count, 8.5 hours later.
11.
I think we leave to 11 on Fridays, 1 person, and then on Saturdays, we tweak the hours this year to have more of an overlap. So I believe it's 10:30 to 4:30 and 2:30 to 10:30, maybe, or
Go
11?
to 11, I think.
To 11?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they'll have a 2-hour overlap. And then and that is Saturdays, Sundays, and stat holidays.
Okay. So they are here after 10 when some of these lots close.
They're here to 11.
And
We had them to midnight last year, and they found between 11 and midnight that they really weren't doing anything. So we condensed the hours but had more overlap because they
Okay.
seem to value having a couple of hours together.
So if there was a necessity for enforcement, they actually are there. Okay, that's a bit of information I didn't know. Thank you. Anybody else? Any questions? Yes, Councillor Abbott?
Back on the permits, we had not unanimously, but I think we did agree that they should be removable, and that's why we're here. But there was also a suggestion that people that have now branded themselves with a shiny gold sticker on the back shouldn't need to put another one on, and we could just let those run on continuously, be valid continuously. And I think everyone seemed to like that idea, but it didn't get into here. Was there a reason for that?
Well, those have an expiry date on them of July 31st,
So you weren't at the
2019.
meeting, but what I suggested was, why don't we do nothing and just tell people those ones are good for the next 3 or 5 or X number of years, seeing everyone's got them stuck on the back of their cars already. And the bylaw officers would know if you've got one of those, even if it's past an expired date, you're fine. You don't have to put another label on your car. That was the suggestion. And I put it down as let's do nothing, and everyone thought, a wonderful idea, but you weren't here at the meeting.
I wasn't here, I didn't get the message that we should do nothing. I thought the message was have a transferable parking permit and have it be multi-year for as long as possible. If we were to simply say, in addition to that, that anybody with a shiny sticker on the back of their vehicle that's valid beyond July 31st, and they wouldn't need to have the other sticker in their window, is going to end up with 4 parking permits, because they're going to get 2 in the mail, unless we don't send them out at all, and then that means that we're sticking with the shiny ones, and as they fall off, because sometimes they do, apparently, especially when it's cold, we're going to have people coming in to get replacements, and we have a limited number of replacements, and so I don't know, we've embarked upon a different path, and I would suggest that the 2 paths are not compatible.
And those gold ones aren't transferable.
Councillor Abbott, my recollection was that, I think it was along the lines of that it was preferred to have these type of transferable things so that people that have cars parked in and stuff like that could move them around. I think your idea was a jaw dropper at the time, but without looking at the minutes, I think there was a groundswell that the transferable thing was going to win the day.
I just didn't think the idea was initially mutually exclusive, should I say. No, I personally don't feel like putting another sticker on my vehicles. It's the one I've got until it falls off, if it ever does. But
Why didn't everybody get their chance to weigh in?
I think it's a good recommendation, so I support it. I thought your idea was a novel idea also, I see the merit in it.
Well, you've got
But
part
I
of,
think
you've got part of the, you got
so-
part of the idea.
So overlapping this two systems seems to be more complicated than
Okay.
practical. For the enforcement officers.
Thank you. Counselor?
Yeah, I just like the transferable one.
Counselor?
Okay, I like what I see.
Any other discussion? No? Motion to receive? Thank you. Unanimous. Thank you. Public Works Manager?
We're going live.
Whoa.
So music?
high tech.
Music too.
No, no.
Game of Thrones.
You want to read out the report?
At the end.
Oh,
We call it nightmares. I didn't see that coming.
Just last one.
Yeah. Gotta use it.
Yep. Thanks, Sean.
My money's on it. I was gonna take it out.
Oh,
So,
yeah, I'm just,
Oh,
have no idea.
mine is sticking on my screen.
yeah, it'll look different.
Okay.
So, next slide.
Fair enough.
Because then that would be really disappointing.
So the core service review is predicated on 3 key different tasks, 3 key levels of core services. Mandatory, essential, best management practices. The balance of the tasks that Public Works conducts are considered discretionary. So tasks that we can, if council so chooses, not do. Next. So maintenance will increase the life of an asset. We know that from everyday life in automobiles that push 300,000 kilometers on the odometer. Regular maintenance will prolong the life of an asset. There's engineering studies and reports that demonstrate this. The same applies to public works infrastructure, whether it's a bridge, a water main, fire hydrant, street lamp. All of them require a certain level of maintenance to achieve their expected life span. And sometimes they can be prolonged beyond that. Great examples are wastewater treatment plant. The book life on that plant is 30 years. We're now pushing that by approximately 9 years. And that's because of the maintenance, the constant greasing, the constant cleaning, the constant checkups. So maintenance is a key part in prolonging our assets. Next. So the analogy of a car, 300K, proper maintenance. Without proper maintenance, it ain't gonna last 3 years. Next. Core service review, the core service level report is broken down into key core service level areas. And those are administration, roads and bridges, traffic and lighting, creeks and drainage, water treatment, water quality, water storage and distribution, wastewater collection and treatment, facilities maintenance and management, parks and open spaces, fleet and equipment, and waste control services. Next. So the core service review was written late in 2016, presented to council in 2017. So the values in the back in the table in the core service review are based on 2016 actual hours performed by Public Works. The recommended number of hours are based on mandatory, essential, and best management practices for each given asset. So based on the best management practices, the required mandatory, and the essential services, we should be spending 5,416 hours in water treatment, quality, storage, and distribution. In 2016, we spent 3,527 hours.
2.5 full-time.
Correct, yeah.
No.
Working.
Less than
2.5.
3,522?
No, so you need 5,400.
Correct,
So that's 2.5 people.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So that's a good point. The hours that we're talking about are not, they're actual worked hours. They don't include sick, vacation, any other time off that staff may have, like wellness days, etc.
It's actually almost 3 because they work on 1,850 hours a year.
Correct.
But 1,850 assumes 3 weeks vacation and 9 stats, no sick time, and everyone works at a PF of 1, which doesn't happen. So in actual fact, you need more bodies than what you state.
Correct.
Probably by 15 to 20%.
Spoken like a true project manager.
How much automation could we introduce? Careful.
It can come in and it can help because it does extend the availability for tasks that can't be automated.
SCADA, remote monitoring.
So in that water area, because we're not doing all of the work, there are things that are being missed. For example, the fire underwriters recommends that every fire hydrant in a municipality receive 2 services per year. The first is a full tear down, and the second is an operation. You turn the fire hydrant on, you check the pressure, you turn it off. We have 72 fire hydrants. At the current staffing level, we are only able to service 1 fire hydrant once. It's a full tear down, but 1 fire hydrant a year. So that means the other 71 fire hydrants aren't touched. And some hydrants could go many years without being touched at all. Next slide, John. So this is an example of a fire hydrant at 120 Lions Bay. It was actually serviced in 2014. This year, staff had to use that fire hydrant. There was a development happening. We needed to do a pressure test so we could provide the building owners with a pressure so they could determine fire sprinkler and how much water they could have, their flows. When staff went to operate that hydrant, it didn't operate, it was broken. And that's the piece that's broken. So basically what I was trying to illustrate here is that a fire hydrant has over 80 separate unique pieces, including gaskets, rubber flanges, and moving parts. In this case, this is a cast iron part that's designed to break away if excessive force is used to open or to close a fire hydrant. So we know that it was serviced in 2014, we know it was working in 2014. When this break happened between 2014 and last month when staff went to service it, we don't know. It could have happened the day after we had done our pressure test, meaning that the hydrant's not been in service since 2014. Part of the reason why the fire underwriters require 2 maintenance checks on hydrants in a year, to ensure they're operating when they're needed. Next slide. So if you consider all of our core service areas, and if you look at the mandatory, the essential, and the best management practices, you get 14,000 hours, 14,100 hours. In 2016, we had spent 8,000. It's almost half. Based on the council report that was put forward to council in 2017, I think 2017 we deferred adding an additional public works person. And in 2018, that public works person was added.
But somewhere along the way as well, one of the public works people who wasn't full-time was made full-time. Right?
Correct. Yeah.
I forget when that happened.
That was in 2017.
2017.
Yeah. So we had a part-time person. That part-time person was made into a full-time person in 2017. And in 2018, an additional full-time person was added.
Which would have given you 6.
Which gives us a total of 6, correct? Yeah. So this gives you an idea of where the deficiencies are. You can see that a key area of deficiency is in roads and bridges, traffic and street lighting, creeks and drainage. Those are your key areas. Next slide, Sean.
We're going to come back at the end and get some comments on all of these, or should we
Absolutely.
as we go along? You want to get through your slide presentation first?
Please, yeah. So, when we received the approval to proceed for the full-time person in 2018, we were delayed in implementing that because we had begun contract negotiations. There were questions about public works tasks and job descriptions. We eventually got a posting out in September, went through the applications, and selected an individual and hired them in November. The idea was that we would use 2019 as a check year. We would have 6 people, we would see what we could do to juggle our schedules and to try and accomplish some of the key tasks that we weren't accomplished. Unfortunately, a month in after we hired that person, one of our employees went out on a WCB claim. That person has yet to come back to work. We're still waiting for that. So we're down that additional body. On top of that, we'll be losing another individual in July that we'll have to rehire for or post for. So we really haven't seen the impact of that increased FTE. Next slide. The old adage, how many public works employees does it take to change a light bulb? And what I want to get across in the next few slides is that there's so much that the general public doesn't understand about what we do and the equipment that we maintain. So, next slide, Sean. This is just to give you an idea of one of the tasks that we do. We are required to change light bulbs in our UV reactors every 4,000 hours. So in accomplishing this, first thing is you turn the valve off and then you dismantle the unit. So it's a very methodical thing. It's done in pieces. You know, it takes a methodical person to do this. This is an idea of the parts that he removes. Everything is very meticulous. It needs to be kept very clean. You can see the dust gloves he wears when he does the removal. In the bottom right, you can see it's progressed to the end where he's removed the gaskets, and the 2 lamps are there that need to go in. The openings need to be plugged. We can't get any dust. We can't get any moisture in there. And then we need to, so inside each of these reactors, the sleeve houses the light bulb. And outside the sleeve is a gel that's used to actually clean the tube. So as water goes across that tube, over time it accumulates a slime or a biofilm. There's a wiper that runs along that, and it requires a gel to clean. So we have to remove the old gel and inject the new gel. And then reassemble and run it through its maintenance check. So basically, it takes an employee with 15 years experience 4 hours to change 2 bulbs on 1 reactor. We have 4 reactors, 2 at each plant. It's not as simple as it appears. Same with a hydrant, tearing it down. Same with an air valve. Same with a street valve in the street. Any of these that require maintenance, they're quite onerous tasks and quite detail oriented. And these guys accumulate as much education and training in this field as a bachelor's degree requires. On top of that, they're required to take 2.4 CEUs of continuing education every 2 years. It's rigorously mandated and tested through the Environmental Operator Certification Program. So we can't just hire somebody off the street. They need to have their training and education as well. That's the slideshow.
So how many of your 6 staff have an operator's certification?
All of them.
All of them?
Yeah. There's different levels to what they have to be certified. So one of the employees is certified as a treatment plant operator. The rest all have Water 1. One of them is writing Water 2 within the next 4 months.
The function you described of changing the UV bulbs, who could do that?
Only one person, the treatment plant operator, yeah. I mean, short of rehashing what's in the report and the package, I'm open to questions. Yeah.
You talk about the general public not understanding, sort of maybe there being a lack of understanding of the amount of work that happens behind the scene. So wouldn't it be an opportunity to educate the public maybe every 3 months to say what the public works has been up to? Give people an opportunity to know what items have been checked off the list, even if it's big buckets, I don't know. I'm just suggesting that if your sense is that the public doesn't understand what Public Works does, it sounds like we have to educate the public. And create some, you know, some accountability for both directions. Just a thought.
Yeah. Yeah, we can think about that.
Yeah, I mean, some things are gonna be visible, things that people could see, that staff are working on, you know, parking lot, for example.
Flushing mains,
Snow removal.
Flushing,
Cutting grass.
snow
Yeah,
removal.
some of those
Yeah.
obvious.
I mean, there's,
Yeah.
if people look around and pay attention, there's a lot of things that they'll notice and see.
Yeah.
I guess it's, you know, a lot of times what we hear is, well, why is the village looking shabby? Why can't we trim all the trees and bushes and everything in the boulevards? And it's because the tasks that are required, some of which we're not even doing, are complex
I
and
think-
they take a long time.
A discussion or review article around preventative maintenance and kind of touching on all the assets we own and what kind of maintenance, just some examples. I think would go a long way to educating people to understand what's actually happening behind the scenes, right? It is, I think we're making an assumption about what people know in terms of the assets that are owned and what kind of work's involved. I didn't even think about the gutters. You listed all those buildings that need gutter cleaning. I mean, it's days worth of work right there.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can I have I was going to, similar, you were about to speak this.
Oh, it's okay, I can wait.
Similar observation from exactly the opposite point of view. The question jumps out to me is, are we prioritising in the right areas? Right? And I think the slide's gone, but the slide you had that showed what's recommended adding up to 7.5 FTEs versus what we actually did adding up to 4.2 FTEs in 2016. Some of the categories that jump out to me as alarming. Roads and bridges, for example, we spent 652 hours on. And if you go further in the pack, you find that 405 of those hours are of snowplow. Right? I don't know whether that year, I mean, it runs over 2 seasons, I guess it's calendar year, right? I don't know if that's it sounds like an average number. I don't think it's a particularly good or bad year, but that means we only had 247 hours spent on roads and bridges. We should, and we were planning on, or recommended spending 2,800 hours. I mean, we're just miles off, right? And those are that area and creeks and drainage, which only spent 198 hours on. And those are the ones that are alarmingly low. I mean, the roads and bridges are the ones that are lowest. It's like 23% of what you want. But what puts it in perspective for me, if I take the snow cleaner out, I end up with 247 hours. I add them to the 200 hours that we have for drainage and creeks, right? I come up with a total of 445 hours get spent on anything to do with our roads, including the drainage and ditches, and which we all know is a deteriorating asset that's probably should be one of the biggest concerns. And then I compare that to spending 1,547 hours on parks. And that's the stuff that you hear the most about people say. You know, parks looking shabby, the beach looks a mess, or whatever. That's the stuff that is most likely for people to be coming up and bringing to council and end up driving our behaviours into what is, you know, aesthetics, when we really should be out there doing it. I mean, that's an alarming statistic, right? How little we spend, 3.5 times as much keeping things look pretty as we do trying to fix our roads and ditches, which are just a rapidly deteriorating asset. So I think we need to start, paying, taking some hard knocks here, and directing as council. I'm saying we should sort of help or direct staff to, you know what, we're going to have to just put up with some of the whining and complaining. Because we have to get on to the preventive maintenance that we're not doing. And that's the message I get through this. I'm assuming that's what was written. Well, I don't know, I wouldn't assume what was written, but when I read through this, that's what I come up with. So, and here we are in 2019, and are we doing any different? Would this year's numbers look any different to this?
No.
Probably not. We spend more, sorry Peter, just another example, we spend more moving tables around for community events right? Which is a nice thing, it's a nice thing to do in the community, it's what we like to do for each other. We spend more doing that than we did to try and repair the roads. So I think we need to have a good hard look at this and decide, are our priorities in the right place?
That was the intent of the report to begin with, was for council to look at it and
I got sucked in
and to make those hard decisions. And council of the day, to their credit, saw that there was a need for additional resources and provided for that. And as Mr. Jaffer has noted, it's been hard, it's been slow for us to get to that point where we're actually seeing the benefit of those additional resources, due in part to injuries and such. But we're hoping that 2019 is going to be a little bit different and provide us with a bit more in terms of some progress towards improving on some of these numbers. But I think we're still going to be a long way off, but hopefully a bit better than what we were in 2016-17.
I just want to make a comment. I mean, the prioritization, the things that Councilor Abbott pointed out, should come from staff, should come from you, right? That's where that should come from.
It comes from council as well. There are council priorities.
We're not technically versed in this stuff.
There are historical tasks that we have always,
If we've got a pool of 4.2 full-time people,
it's
I mean,
it's six now.
okay, but
Yeah.
that should be a paradigm shift in where they're spending their time.
Yes, it should be, if we had,
But-
over the course of that time.
So what I'm hearing both of you say, and just correct me if I'm wrong, is that you're saying that direction needs to come from council?
Can I go for a clarification on that? There's been a little bit of nuance to that, in that some of these tasks are mandated by statute and regulation. And there are things that we need to do regardless of what council thinks.
So
The
moving
priority.
tables and cleaning up
So
parks.
there are categories within the CSLR report that I think Nye started the conversation noting that they're somewhat discretionary, and that's where council has the ability to prioritize or reprioritize if they so choose.
So
But
page,
the council also have to understand, every decision we make drives some sort of behaviour.
Okay.
We like, if you look at a project, we like the owner, right? I always tell the owner when he comes on a project, don't talk to anyone, because if you say one word to someone, it's direction, it's absolute, and he goes and does it, and it's probably not in your best interest. Council does the same, because we're supposed to set direction. If we sit here in the meeting and say, yeah, it's just one more community event, let's get the workshop to go move the tables, and we keep doing that, we force something else to not to get done. We've got to be careful of what we say as councillors creates a behaviour, or it sets a direction, whether we do it consciously or not. What we should do, if we really want to be honest with ourselves, we say, if we want to do that, then we should decide which road we're not going to seal the cracks on this year. That's what we should be doing.
So you're saying that's what council should be doing?
If council was looking at this, yes, if council was looking at this, council was being critical of their own decisions. Council, when we decide to do something that's not on the plan, we should bear in mind that we're taking away from something else, and we should consider it in that light. But it's too easy just to do something because it's nice, and it's not the one, it's not the next one, it's incremental till you get to a step change, and then suddenly we need another body. Why do we need another body? All I added was one more community event. No, you didn't. You've actually, over the years, you've slowly built this wave of expectation that we're going to do all these nice things. Be they banners, community events, and I'm not suggesting any of these particularly need to stop. Gardening, whatever, all these nice things that make this a nice community looking to live in, the place you want to drive home tonight. I get all the reasons for doing it. But, yeah, just, we can't always afford it.
I think this is great data. I really think we can't ignore it. But what I'd like to see is this stuff ranked, and then the hours shifted accordingly, right? The highest priority item should really be getting the highest hours. In my mind, I don't know if how's that happen, that's,
the problem with that is that ranking them will result in activities not being done that have historically been done, and an expectation from residents that those activities are done, and when they're not done, there will be an outcry, there will be public feedback. Boulevard maintenance is a great example of that. In most municipalities, boulevard maintenance is the responsibility of the adjacent homeowner. So as a homeowner, you're responsible for maintaining your boulevard up to the road edge. There are significant areas in Lions Bay where Public Works looks after that.
I think that's nonsense.
Correct, but there are people that expect that. And if we're to change that, it involves implementing a bylaw and making decisions and making something not popular.
You're talking to an engineer, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
To me, preventative maintenance it's a no-brainer. It's an absolute no-brainer.
I thought we discussed that, like, Public Works is not a landscaping,
I thought we talked about that last meeting, right?
a couple meetings ago.
It's coming up in the fall. We will be issuing a bylaw.
So the idea is that we will, I mean, this has come forward now to give an update as to some of the things that Public Works is busy doing, and I think you had asked the question, what's on the plate and what's the plan and what work is getting done, what things are getting knocked off the list. The list is always evolving, it's always there. There's no, it's, you know, they're not ticked off and now it's done. It's ticked off until 2 weeks later when it has to get ticked off again and again and again for all the maintenance type items. But in terms of having a sea change of shift in attitudes and expectations from the residents, that will, I think, require not only a bylaw, but, you know, and I've been gathering similar bylaws from other North Shore communities, for example. But I think that, you know, we will need to engage in a consultation process with the residents so that people understand what it is that we're proposing is to change and explain why. And some of these things we'll have an opportunity to delve into some of these things that we looked at today and to try to explain to people all of the things that Public Works does, all the things that we need to do on a regular basis, and some of the things that we're not getting to, and that in order to create enough time within the work plan without hiring more and more and more staff all the time, is to shift some of those priorities and to take areas where, for example, boulevard maintenance in other communities being done by the residents of the adjacent properties, we need to go that direction in Lions Bay as well. So I think that that needs to be a proper consultation process. Council needs to hear from the residents as to what that looks like, and answer questions about, and help, you know, answer questions about why this is the direction that, you know, we've taken some direction from council that we're going to head in that direction. We're not got the plan in place and we haven't done the work yet, but it's in the work plan and coming down the pike. So that's more or less, I think, where we're at right now.
So one last thing, I mean, data's great, right? It helps us focus on where the issues are and decide what they are. What does it take to update this with current information? I know I asked Niall before, I believe you have, your timesheets are coded to try track to this, but it's only at the upper level, not at the next level down.
Correct.
With the exception of the odd thing like snow clearing and so on. I'm not suggesting that people have to spend an hour a day doing timesheets to track it all the way through, but I think we should know what we spend on things like boulevard maintenance, for example. And I couldn't see that in here. I don't think that's one of the codes that is broken out.
No.
So I think we should maybe think about which other ones we need and which other ones is valid information. And
So that would
code
be-
the time sheet.
That would be a process that we could initiate in 2020, at the beginning of the year, makes sense to do it, rather than halfway through. And it does include or
Yeah,
require,
We are looking at that in terms of, I mean, it affects the GL, but it's a project we're quite enthusiastic about developing more detail and then have it tracked by the system. But there is some, it's not a huge project, but there are a lot of steps to do that. And also automating the timesheets, and there's quite a few things you want to do, but it does make sense to start it, like January, would be all ready to start it January 1st, 2020, so then we would have that information.
Okay. But at the higher level, we will be able to get numbers for 2018,
yes,
Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
we
and
could, yeah.
2019,
yeah,
so we can see that
so far,
the
yeah.
trends moved anywhere for
Sure.
better or worse.
Yeah.
And I am reminded of some of the steps that we have taken that have, moved us leaps and bounds ahead in terms of not spending time doing things, for example, within the Highway 99 corridor and the boulevard, the berms, and maintaining a lot of those things. So that was something that we accomplished in the last term. And substantially reduced the amount of time that staff spent working on those kinds of things. So there's always, we're always looking for ways to become more efficient, and so that we've got more hours that can be spent on the high priority items that need to be addressed.
Well, what also strikes me is you mentioned the hydrants, and not to focus on this subject only, but you've got the 2 checks annually. When I was working at West Van, the fire crews went out and did the easy on-off checks all the time. And so every hydrant in the whole district was essentially changed in each year, or checked every year. So that would be staff's only responsibility would be the major teardowns.
And that's all we did in West Van. That's all I had my staff do in West Van, was the major teardown.
And we don't do that here?
Have the fire department,
The fire guys do the visual check?
It's the operational.
it's the operational check, yeah. Yeah, no, we don't.
Yeah, they really should be, because it's their bread and butter. If it doesn't go on, they're in big trouble. And so I think there's a real big buy-in to
Sounds like a
them.
good change.
I will engage the fire chief.
Good. In terms of time, now if I would want to move on in this topic, but I got a suggestion which I'll look for nods on. How long does it take to break down a fire hydrant and put it back together again?
If the fire hydrant is maintained on a regular basis, it takes maybe an hour to
Okay,
tear it down.
so they're not.
It can take, the fire hydrant in question at 120 Lions Bay Avenue took 2 days to put back into service.
Okay. So a couple of things, and this came here with not subterfuge in place, but it's an awakening for council before we go to the community on this. I mean, just as Councillor Abbott's pointed out, parks and open spaces is more than boulevard maintenance. It's doing the washrooms, it's dealing with the beach logs and this kind of stuff, and it's the dog bags and a whole bunch of things that really are core to the thing. So just to say, that's just not going to go over well, period, and I think I would not go down that path. But certainly a bunch of things resonate with me. Going with the negative first, we have a personnel shortfall if they were all here. And Pam, and at 85 grand a fully loaded employee, close enough. You know, to get another 1.5, considering what we just did taxation-wise, it's another 13%. So it's probably not going to happen during this council's lifetime to increase the complement. And if, however, we get our 6 folks back together, I mean, that's part of the plan here too. So bad luck so far. But I mean, we need those 6 folks back. I think to Councillor Barmeyer's point, this presentation is too complex for the public. It's too much information. They're not going to go to links, I don't believe. So I think the op-ed piece needs to come out probably more than once. And so the question is, who does that? do we draw straws and a council member writes that, or is this something that staff wants to do? So that's a piece of it, but the lead to this is that, where I'm going with this, is that if you can talk to the chief about the fire hydrant piece, and I'm hopeful he's gonna say yes, and there aren't any union issues. I mean, that one's an obvious one that you can say to the public, needs being done, we're not cutting boulevards to sub this or something like that. So I'm sure we can come up with a few things like that. Where I would like to see this go is that the op-eds run once or twice between now and September, that using September or fall is when the hard-nosed boulevard bylaw comes forward. I mean, it can't, we're in May, ain't gonna happen in June, probably not July, August we're away. September seems fine, you'll have more data, and we're starting to do the budget for 2020. I don't think council wants to micromanage your time, works manager, but I mean, if we're going to take the hit with the public, which we would, to assist you or us, then let's quantify what that is, which is, I think is what Councillor Barmer and Councillor Abbott are trying to get to the, what can we say, we're gonna take a hard stance on, just so no, we're not doing that. So you're not gonna hear a lawnmower cutting boulevards this year. So I'd like to, with my council colleagues, kind of in agreement where we're going, is if this could come back in September with a plan that it's kind of really put into effect in before the new calendar year. Does that seem doable?
I think that's what we're pretty much aiming for in terms of bringing something forward. And I think that the public consultation piece needs to go with it. I don't.
What does that look like to you?
I'm not 100% sure yet, but I think that it's going to require some educational pieces and perhaps an open house on stuff that Public Works does. Maybe some show and tell and
demo the book, yeah.
and some of the things that some of the ideas in terms of cutting back on certain things in order that other things of high priority can be addressed without increasing taxes for that purpose. Might be some of those things. I mean, that still needs to be thought out and managed, but.
So then to support this, I think just if you disagree, put your hand up, make it easier. My thinking is we should be starting on a couple of op-ed pieces. If you disagree, put your hand up.
I think it's too soon to start.
Too soon?
I think we need to develop I would like to develop a communication plan around this particular issue and topic so that develop something, bring it back to council, talk about what that looks like, and get some agreement on what that looks like, and then execute the plan. But I think it should be more comprehensive, and instead of just try to get out in front of it.
And we've got a lot on the go right now.
Okay,
so.
well, I mean, it's fair enough. Well, are you thinking September? Yes, come to that.
I
can give you lots of time here.
I think that I would like to work on developing a plan sooner than that, so that we're talking about it and agreeing on something in July, I think, so that come September we know exactly what we're doing.
Okay, Councillor Abbott?
Yeah, one other observation. So we have potential full-time equivalents of 6. We can't get there. Someone's injured, long-term disability. He's coming back next month. No, he's not. Yes, he is. No, he's not. I know how that stuff happens. But we've already budgeted a certain amount of money for those 6 people, right? So now our obligation is to spend that money that we was meant to be spent, right? But now we've got additional cap. And then we have things like parking lots that aren't even on this plan, that the same staff people are now going and doing council decision, not going back to revisit it, everything else, but they're doing this. So now it's getting even worse. But, and I mentioned this to you before now, if we could have, and you, I think, agreed, or you've done it before, if we could have some sort of service level agreement with contractor or contractors, that means that we don't go have to out and bid stuff. So when we get behind, we can get someone else that's already got an agreement what their rates are, whether it's unit rate, I recommend it's unit rate, not T&M, come out and do the car park. So we don't end up dragging our staff away, given that we're already one man down and those kind of things. Can we look at putting like something like that in place?
Well, that's part of developing a comprehensive purchasing policy and incorporating those kinds of things into the purchasing policy, which I would advocate for. However, some of the things would require, if we don't have a pre-qualified, a process, a competitive process to pre-qualify potential contractors, then you still got to go out to RFP on something that costs $30,000 or $40,000.
No, I'm suggesting a competitive process to pre-qualify them, to put service agreements in place that is based on, filling cracks in roads by linear meter, or those kind of services, right? So that if the works yard's getting behind and we've got some budget, hell, we can just pull the trigger and go do some of it, not have to be ground down, how do we get permission, how do we spend this money?
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, then here's what, if I've heard this right, I think everybody's had their chance in this, so we're all on the record. The CAO has offered to bring this back in July. So with that fine, if that's fine with everybody, then we'll let staff lead this and go from there. And until then, we'll all stand down. And can I have a motion to receive the report? Thank you. All in favor? Good, done. Thank you. Next up. Who doesn't love a good school tax?
Sorry, what page?
That would be 127.
Sorry. This was basically an information report. It's really part of a communication plan to get in the council package. As you can see, it's going to go in the village update, and it's going with the property tax notice. In 2018, the provincial government brought in an additional school tax. So houses over $3 million will pay an additional 0.2%, and then when it hits $4 million, it pays an additional 0.4%. And I was trying to find that balance between communicating it, although it's not our tax, it's the provincial tax, but I'm not sure if people whose houses are over $3 million have been notified by the provincial government. It's been in the press a lot, but I think the speculation tax seemed to get more attention than this additional provincial tax. So we had just received a report from BC Assessment, not a report, but just the attachment, just listing all the houses in Lions Bay that will be hit with this additional tax. So there's a portion that hits on the amount over $3 million, and then what hits over $4 million. So it's a total of $107,000 of additional tax. So we are under the obligation of we will be sent tax advices from the school tax for that amount, and then they will see it on our property tax bill. We'll collect the money and then we remit it to school tax. So by putting it in the village update and in the property tax brochure and with this council report, it was really just a matter of communication. I don't want people to be really surprised when they open up their tax bill. Like I said, it's been on the news a fair amount, but not as much as the speculation tax. So we thought this was the best way to address it, because it really isn't our tax. But at the same time, they're going to see it on our tax bill.
I think it got a lot of press when it first came out.
When it first came out in different areas, well, to put it in perspective, we're collecting another 107,000. West Vancouver is being hit with an additional 32 million.
Yeah, in West Point Grey.
Yeah, they're being hit harder than actually anyone in the province, West Vancouver. Well, Point Grey actually tried to challenge it, and the response from the government was just defer your taxes then, if you can't afford to pay them. So actually that's another side effect that I think we'll see, is that there'll be a big increase, not so much with us, but other areas will be a big increase, I think, in the amount of people who defer their taxes.
Many people don't understand how tax deferral works. They think that you're just getting away with not paying your taxes. They don't realize that the village is still receiving money and that they will be paying at some point.
Right.
So there is, I've had conversations just recently where someone's thanked me for explaining it to them because they were actually angry with neighbors that they've heard defer their taxes. So if there could be some sort of education
Yeah.
piece on
So-
that.
Yeah, there's a bit of a misunderstanding. Sometimes people come in, we really emphasize with our communication that there's a misunderstanding too, if you're deferring your taxes, you still have to defer them by the due date. And that's really important because by deferring them, you're still paying them, and if you defer
Yeah.
them late, you are still hit with the penalty. And then you have to pay that, you can't have any outstanding taxes when you defer, so then you're hit with the penalty, and then you can't defer until you pay the penalty. So we could maybe increase our communication on that, maybe put something in the village update, you know. This is how deferred taxes work. We've always concentrated on this is how you defer, and I think
Yeah.
we're doing a better job now of explaining to people it's still like paying your taxes, and you still have to claim your homeowner's grant. A lot of people forget to claim their homeowner's grant when they defer, but maybe just explaining that, I mean, basically they're taking a loan from the provincial government to pay their
Exactly.
taxes. There's a slight cash flow impact on us in that we don't get our money. It's improved. Last year we got it, most of it in August, but some years it was November. So it can be a cash flow issue because I think now it's up to 35% of the village defer their taxes. So it is quite a bit. But that is a good point. I like that. We could put that in the village update. Just this is
So-
how deferred taxes work.
So we're going to, two things then. So you're going to do a small thing on this information in the next couple of weeks? Thank you. And somewhere you're going, probably not together, maybe, who knows how you're going to do it, you do another piece on the info piece on deferral?
Well, that's actually part of, that's on our website, and it's actually on the tax bill as well. So I think
Okay.
we've got that
But if
covered.
we're talking
how
about
to do
the
it.
But if
school
we're
tax.
talking about, you
and
want to reference it?
If there's a reference to deferring, then maybe that's just the time and place to include some education on what does deferring taxes involve. I don't know, or do you see it as a separate piece?
Well, I'll check. I mean, we do, we put something in the village update about just if you're deferring your taxes, reminding them when to do it. But I was thinking of a piece on how it worked that we actually,
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a yes? Grudgingly a yes?
No, sorry. I forgot to try, a yes to what?
Yes, you're going to do a little
An
info
educational
piece
piece on deferment,
on deferment,
On how to defer?
on what it
all
means.
aspects of deferment.
Okay, because there was this piece, but I think we've covered off how to defer. That's what I'm saying very well. It's on our website, it's everywhere. But
Okay.
we've never explained how deferment works in the fact that we are actually paying the tax, we're receiving our money. So that was the piece.
Well, I mean, Councillor Cunliffe right. I mean, some people think, okay, the village doesn't get to go because it's deferred.
Yeah, so I think that's something we've not addressed. So
Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
I definitely want to do that.
So if you could do a paint by numbers,
Okay.
thank you. Any other questions? Nope. Motion to receive the report. Thank you. All in favor? Good. Next up, again,
This, we bring every quarter. It's just really for information purposes. It's basically all the checks we've written in the first quarter of the year, from January 1st to March 31st. Just for information purposes. I mean, we have an approval process with the checks and a good segregation of duty. I sign the checks along with the CAO, and then a separate party prepares the checks. But this is essentially the checks that have been written in the first 3 months of the year.
when you get a void check.
Oh, I've got questions. You can't give me pages and pages of
Oh, no,
numbers.
I was, Councillor Bain always has a question for me, and I usually can't answer it. So that's all I meant was.
So he's got no questions?
No.
Oh.
No, I welcome questions. I should have brought my reading glasses, though.
I'm a little bit confused about,
I really need them.
okay, I'll help you out. Bottom of page 132,
Yes?
Capilano Highway Services, holdback release.
Yes.
That's not the holdback release value, right?
That was the work that was done on 35 Kelvin Grove Way, so it was about
Oh,
$160,000.
way. I was thinking of the $19,000. As this is just.
Oh, yeah, no, there wasn't a $16,000
Okay, how did we get to that? I thought it was
No.
labeled wrong. Okay,
No,
gotcha.
no,
So
it was, yeah, we're
it is holdback
limited
release
to,
then. Okay.
yeah, we're limited to our description, but yes, and that was exactly, the work was finished, and then we released the whole back.
I thought it was the Calvert crossing. Okay, gotcha. Just observation, so What's our policy on buying PPE for staff? Do we buy everyone's boots? Is that
The Public Works, yes, once a year. They, I think what the actual policy is. We buy their boots.
It's a contract issue.
Yeah,
It's in the-
it's a negotiated contract. It's typical for most municipalities. They'll offer a boot allowance.
Yeah, we don't have a boot allowance, but it's normally kept. I just see ours isn't kept. Some people, there's various different numbers.
Right.
Some of them quite high. Okay, they're not kept. There's no boot allowance. You just get a pair of boots.
That's part of
They're the nicest ones you can find. Okay.
I think we cap it at 200?
I
I'm
think
not
so,
sure,
yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
Was there something more than 2?
Well, you missed it on
Might have been with
one.
the, might have been with the PST.
You missed it on one of them, 232. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
no big deal. Trucks. So we've bought all our trucks now, right?
Yes. We
So these
previously-
lease payments that are in here, this is just like their overlap.
Exactly.
Okay.
It was a capital lease. The lease ended June 2018, but there was a delay with the new trucks and the RFP. So we just had an operating lease until we returned one check February of 2019 and then the 2 trucks in March 2019. So there's no more lease with CMAC. And then we purchased the trucks
So
this
going
year.
forward, we won't see any more leases
No.
anymore. It's just you chance and purchase that.
Yep, so there was an overlap as each time we purchased a new truck, we ended one of the leases.
Okay. Couldn't help adding up how much money we spend on salt. That's a good business to be in. Huh? Salt delivery. There's a couple of odd ones where I saw there's some staff members that have been gone for a while. What was that about? Just interested in some. There's
Oh,
retro
the
payments,
retro pay.
retro payments on staff
Oh,
all over the
yes.
place.
What that was, we were without a union agreement for 3 years. So when we settled the contract, seems like forever ago, but it was last year, there was retro pay. So they were no longer employees. So Revenue Canada allows us just to pay them by check. So it was retro pay. And in some cases, it would have been, people who had left, had worked for 2 years without a contract. It could have been fairly substantial.
We're obligated to pay.
So,
So that's all cleaned up.
it's all done now, it's all retro pay.
Okay.
Because, yeah, that's a good catch, because normally we wouldn't be writing checks to
People
former
that left years
employees.
ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that was all the observations I had, other than I'm going to investigate into the salt business. Like tens of thousands.
Great. Any questions? There being none? No? Councilor Abbott, motion to receive. Thank you. Second, all done. Thank you. Fast charging station.
This is a compilation of feedback that we got. There was one additional one that came in late today and got circulated to council via email. Yeah, more or less that's what this is. In response to Councillor Barmeyer's village update piece.
So, just before, so did this come through the feedback button?
Yeah,
Okay.
so either feedback button or feedback@lionsbay.ca, I'm not sure.
The reason I asked Sean is because last time everything came through feedback was all caps.
I don't remember now where it all came from. I think it all came from our website, and then I exported it, and then it actually changes it to non-caps.
So the last time I've always recognized the feedback
That's
stuff
if
as
I
the
copy,
caps.
if I copy and paste
Okay.
it.
So this did come through the feedback button.
I think so, yeah. I'm
Okay.
pretty certain that's
If
where I
you
got it.
print from the website, if you print the table from the website, it'll be all caps. But if you export it, it comes in a sentence case.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was just intrigued to see how we were getting the feedback.
But I think there also was, there probably was some that were via the email, because there was a live link at the bottom of the article, if I remember correctly. Just to
I
the-
think it was just Carl's was the only one that came in, which is in correspondence.
Okay.
It came in
Good.
through email.
And Councilor Barmeyer, remind me what the next step is on this?
So I've been talking to BC Hydro directly. They have an initiative to launch charging stations throughout the Lower Mainland, and they have been doing this in different municipalities, so there's that avenue. And then the other avenue is the way we laid out the motion is that we would first locate a suitable area. So I don't know, we've done that, that was on staff to locate an area, right?
Had time.
Yeah, so once we have an area located, then the next step is to engage BC Hydro formally with what's called a service request. So you engage a designer at a high level with BC Hydro, they look at the intended location, they give you an indication of whether it's electrically practical to get the power to that location. That's the initial $500 application fee. And then we sort of slowly advance to the next step. So if it's practical, if we have power there, then we talk about, okay, let's put a cost estimate together and work out whether we want to engage BC Hydro to do the design. So it's a stage process. The feedback, I mean, I looked through the feedback, it's generally positive. You know, if we just look at the numbers, it's 75% are supporting the idea. I've talked to a number of residents just in the street, and it's all very positive feedback. One of the things that I've come to learn is that houses within Lions Bay, a lot of them have 100 amp panels, so they're actually restricted in how much they can add. So they don't have the ability to add these level 2 chargers in their garages. They're either limited to a 120 volt plug, which is slow, and they'd really appreciate some infrastructure to be able to do some fast charging. So that's a limitation that maybe I didn't even think about, is some homes can't actually install chargers. So this type of infrastructure would continue to support the adoption of this of EVs. So
Okay.
yeah.
Just a question. If somebody's only got a 100 amp panel,
Yeah.
but they want to get an electric vehicle and be able to charge it, to make that kind of an investment, shouldn't they also be investing in their panel?
You don't necessarily need to if there's enough room in your 100 amp panel. It really depends on the load of your house. So generally, homes that are using electric as their heat source will they'll be unlikely candidates to fit a 40 amp load. You're charging at night, your house is typically cold at night, that's when the heating happens, so it's a bit of a balancing act there. If you have a 200 amp panel, it's not an issue. An upgrade from 100 amps to 200 amps is actually quite costly. That's not a small change to your home, and requires a service adjustment, so your lines have to be upsized, you gotta work with BC Hydro, you might have to cut trees down to meet setback requirements. So a line that's currently slung through the trees wouldn't fly in the future. You'd probably have to take a whole bunch of trees down, so you're probably looking at thousands of dollars in tree cutting, so it's not a small investment, which again speaks in the favor of infrastructure for people to use as a community.
Good.
Is there, sorry, can I just ask one more question? Is there any constraints on our ability to charge for the power that is being used? Like if you have a DC fast charging station, let's just say it was near the hall here, and are there any constraints for us to be able to charge people for the use of that power?
There are lots of what they call point of sale models that these commercial chargers have, and usually they're through apps, and the way you charge is up to the vendor. But there needs to be some kind of a service attached to that, so you're parking your vehicle standing on this property, that you have a benefit other than just the power. Power is just part of the parcel.
Is there a way to charge 2 different tiers, residents versus non-residents?
I think maybe through a membership, I'm not sure. So that's something we need to investigate. Part of the motion that or the resolution that we passed was that we would look at the payment and then the supported operating costs if we got to that point. Maybe we pull that ahead, maybe we start investigating these payment and operating support models sooner, so we understand what's out there now. It's kind of evolving, it's a new technology. And up to this point, in order to incentivize people to purchase electric vehicles, most municipalities have been writing off the hydro bills to get people into cars. A lot of the federal grants, they offer capital to pay for the infrastructure. There's also operating grants, which we would have an opportunity to investigate. If we have a charging station, we might be able to pursue an operating grant. Maybe we get funds for 1 or 2 years to offset the hydro bills. So the federal government is heavy behind this stuff. They're really supporting it. So I think the money's there to keep it neutral to the village.
Yes, that was the question I had. I think it was Peter's question. we can determine what we need to charge to break even, because that was the message I got from the communication, that
Yeah.
they didn't want any cost to the community.
Absolutely.
And we can set that fee, like there's not a mandated fee that you can only charge the cost of the electricity plus a certain percentage.
Yeah, they've really sophisticated apps that unlock the device, so not just anyone can use it. You need to be a member, and it's either through a credit card or a tap, or it's remote through your phone. There's an app, and it unlocks, and it takes account of how much time you've spent on that charger, and it charges your credit card or it charges your...
But we can set the fees though, that's what I meant.
BC Hydro doesn't put a cap on how much.
BC
you can
Hydro,
charge
so
them
my
when we say our
understanding
electricity.
with the BC Hydro stations that are out there is BC Hydro subsidizing that power. So it's not billed to the municipality that owns the charger. That's a BC Hydro asset, they own and operate it, it's free. So there's no burden to the municipality if it's a BC Hydro installed unit, which is different from what we're proposing to do.
Oh, well,
We're proposing to go the grant route and purchase a unit, and then look to offset operating and maintenance costs with charging. So there's two paths that we can pursue.
Yes.
A couple of people's comments on here, some of the negative ones, people, might be negative, but had some issues with the production of the lithium batteries and the damage to the environment, and suggesting that hydrogen fuel cell would probably be cleaner. Is there such thing, well, this is sort of a loaded question knowing what you do for a living.
Right.
Is it worth considering having a hydrogen fuel cell charging unit with it, or are they much larger?
So hydrogen fueling stations they're substantial infrastructure.
Probably are.
And right now, the way that model is rolling out is we're partnering with the larger regular gas stations, so Shell and Esso. This is all public information. So the hydrogen is built into those stations and sold at those stations because the infrastructure is very expensive and quite involved. So you need a lot of real estate. You need about the area of a regular gas station.
Oh, really?
So it's not insignificant, the hydrogen infrastructure piece. Yeah, so it's it's real estate heavy, so which is why the rollout is in a partnership. In terms of the carbon impact of battery production, there's lots of life cycle studies out there that suggest the overall carbon footprint of an electric vehicle is significantly lower than a fossil fuel vehicle. So there are studies out there, and maybe we can write an op-ed piece about that if people are interested to learn about the full life cycle of electric vehicles. I mean, there's lots going on in that sector.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest arguments I hear about them, is around the issue of the battery. Like,
Yeah.
when I think they first came out, there was an 8-year life cycle on the lithium batteries that came with it, and after that you're paying something like $8,000 for a new battery. I imagine it's cheaper now that they're more established, but I think that's some of the big resistance that you have to...
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there was just like any new technology, there's going to be a hesitation initially.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Artie, well, I know you're passionate about this, and I know you're following this, and the op-eds will follow, so we'll let you
Yeah, I mean,
chase the
part
works
of my-
manager on when the
Yeah,
jury.
part of my question, I guess, is sort of, what can and can't I do? How far can I push? And, our resolution's clear. So, do we want to set dates?
There was part of it to go to the IC, was there not?
So part of what I had suggested was the IC portion was to look at the overall operating and maintenance element, and to ask them to take that away to look at how we would make that work.
On a financial perspective, I think one of these units is worth about $100,000.
Honestly, all said and done, that's the worst case scenario. If our power pole that we've kind of tossed around, if that has the power, that price goes way down.
Well, let's use $100,000 for the sake of argument. To me, this is something that's appealing to our villagers. It's another reason to be attracted here, which I'm not opposed to. That, to me, I would see if, with your ability, if we were to do, I'd like to similar a 3-to-1 matching grant. I mean, that kind of dough, if it came out of our pockets, I would be in favor of that.
From a project timeline perspective, I mean, It's, you know, you kind of look at a year from design through to finishing, and commissioning, assuming the money's there.
You'll have time to see it through then. There you go.
So, no, previously you were talking there's potential for 100% grants, right?
That's the grant, that's how the grant reads, and in fact, Pam pointed that out to me, that
Yes.
Depending on the application or the applicant or the criteria of the application, a municipality could in fact be 100% covered for the capital.
Yeah, so whether it's 100% grant or recovered over time, I think the feeling I'm getting is we should aim at like a net zero. Obviously. We can put this in place and demonstrate that over time we're going to recover whatever shortfall is there on the grant. I think that if that's the message we can deliver, I think that would be a great goal to have. And then I think that would be a wonderful thing to self-regulate, and I don't think there'd be any objection to it at that point, if that's feasible.
Yeah. So I think you've kind of got a pretty strong marching orders on this one. There's a lot of interest, just a thing. So we're going to leave it with you to follow through. Come back when you do, and if you want to write another piece, which I think you're going to have to sooner or later. There we go. Any other questions? No? Going. Motion received. Thank you. Done. Mayor's report, none. Council members, anything? Someone sneak by. It's down there.
Yep, sorry.
Council, there being none. Committees, we've already done. Emergency services, perhaps you could lead us in on the RCMP report, Councilor Green.
Well, it looks like business as usual. Nothing really going on with...
We're just not an offensive village.
Well, there's been some exceptions, but other than that...
Okay.
I see it's basically unremarkable.
We've got our page numbering is all messed up.
Page,
Oh, it's here.
no, that's right after the,
This is
81.
monthly information 159, but that's,
Yeah,
what, oh,
agenda
yeah.
says 159, should be 157.
Okay,
I would like to point out that in the RCMP report, the heading Highway 99 bracket within boundaries of Lions Bay is now correct. It used to say within the jurisdiction of Lions Bay, so they did change it for us to within the boundaries of Lions Bay. So I'd just like to publicly thank the RCMP for making that change.
and I'm sure they're listening right now. And speaking of the RCMP, I see they canceled that ridiculous Green Timbers invite due to reasons of nobody wanted to go.
I don't know why it was canceled, but in any event,
Nobody wanted to go. There you go. They said that.
okay.
And speaking of the RCMP, are you tracking them for you and me getting together with them?
Yeah, I think, so something happened with the April meeting, but our next meeting is July, I believe, or end of June.
Good. Okay.
I'll make
It's
sure
yours?
that it's
Okay,
on the
then.
calendar.
so when you talk about these collision stats, collision damage over, under, non-fatal, fatal at times 2, do we know if it's fatal or non-fatal, or is that just a general, lump all that together? Just
Not
curious.
sure.
Okay.
If I can mention something interesting that was somewhat related to this, it was West Van Police though. On Sunday as we were going into town in the morning, we saw they had a road, or a police thing set up. I on a quick drive by, there must have been a dozen motorcycles pulled over northbound. And as we were coming home in the late afternoon, they were on the other side of the road, and they had another bunch of motorcycles coming down. So I think the West Van Police have got the message that those motorcycles, when it's a nice sunny day, are making an awful racket, so they're slowing them down, I think. And further to that, I was at a meeting with a bunch of other people, not related to here, and none of them are residents, and their biggest comment that's coming out along the highway was the speed of the traffic and the noise that it is now. So it's not just us thinking about it. And somebody came up with an idea, I didn't put it into their head, and they said, that idea of speed over distance around Lions Bay would be a great idea. I think it's worth pursuing still.
There you go.
I would agree, there was a fatality, I believe, yesterday, just that there, by the lookout. I think that's a great start point, because it's right at the end of the straightaway, and it would save a lot of people's lives.
Just an observation I also went down on Sunday, I went to Horseshoe Bay and saw what you saw on Sunday morning. When we got down into Horseshoe Bay, at the firewall of Horseshoe Bay, there was 20 motorcycles. So somehow they were getting messages to their buddies and saying, get off at Horseshoe Bay, you're getting pulled over, and they're all gathering around the firewall there. Where are we going to go now?
I did see one motorcyclist with a portable radio in his hand.
Sneaky. All right, thank you. Motion received. Thank you. Done. Next up is resolutions, and who doesn't love one? And that's A, which is appointment of the bylaw officers, and as it is on the agenda, nothing to say. Good that they're back. A motion to on the agenda. Thank you. Second, any discussion? CAO? Nope, all good. Call a motion, all in favor? Thank you, unanimous. Food truck. I know we get more food truck things around here.
Who's buying?
Can we bring it up to Ocean View?
Yeah, right around the time of your event.
Right around, yeah,
Yeah, that nice flat driveway right there, yeah.
it's coming to you early.
All right,
So, any questions?
What food truck, what are they serving?
I
Well,
believe
obviously,
it's
I don't like eating.
a French crepe food truck from Squamish.
but your Germanic background
I
doesn't,
love crepes.
you know, there you go.
They used to call them crepes.
Joint treat.
All right, well, when you read it, it looks like that.
So there was actually an agreement developed a couple of years ago when Events Committee was putting forward the idea of doing a trial period with food trucks. And we did a bunch of research, and there's a lot involved, and some municipalities really go the full 9 yards in terms of regulatory requirements and approvals and inspections and so forth. We tried to keep it as simple as possible and ensure that they were licensed appropriately by Vancouver Coastal Health, and if they are also licensed in another municipality that we're familiar with their permitting process, it just adds another level of comfort. But the agreement that we ended up with was essentially ensuring that that they comply with the VCH requirements and waiver of liability, I think. But that was previously approved by council, so that's what I would be. I've actually already forwarded it to Rita Phillips to pass on to the prospective food truck vendor for their review. Yeah, so that's the only other additional piece of information.
Okay, can I have a motion as put down on the table? Thank you. Second, any discussion? How many flavors are the crepes? Whipped cream, little thing there.
Sweet or savory?
What's your favorite, Counselor?
Nutella with bananas.
Ooh, good
And a
call.
little blackberries in there.
Ah, there we go. All right, call a motion, all in favor? Done, unanimous, thank you.
Missed dinner? Did you miss dinner?
I did.
Bylaws, bylaw officers, I believe this is the last reading.
This is for adoption,
Yes.
page 159.
All right, here we have it. It's adoption. This is last reading on this one. Can I have a motion? Second, thank you. Any discussion? The last time. Going, gone. All in favor? Done, passed. Bylaw fees. Adoption, it's on page 167. I call a motion, sorry, may I have a motion? Thank you, second. Any discussion? None? There being none, call a motion, all in favor? Thank you, unanimous. Correspondence. Councillor Barmier,
All right.
do this in 4 minutes, let's get out of here.
Case of letter from MP Pamela Goldsmith is basically letting us know she's not running for re-election. I don't know if there's a response necessary.
Nope.
Okay. Building BC Community Housing Fund, I don't know that there's a response necessary, but I thought maybe we should consider or talk about whether there is any money in the pot for us in the Community Housing Fund for seniors. Just a real high level think on that. So there's a pot of money, and are we out of the running altogether? City of Burnaby, really expanding investment opportunities. I think that's just for information, so there's no response there. City of Maple Ridge, temporary modular support housing. The person writing this is looking for some support. I think, my take is that we're in over our heads on this to reply, so we really should just receive it and no response.
So done.
Brenda Broughton, noise and parking bylaw relaxation request. This will need to be something we discuss.
Are you comfortable putting the motion forward as she's put it?
I am.
Please do so.
So, putting forward the motion that council resolve to bylaw relaxation request. Okay, so that council relax the noise bylaw and the traffic and parking bylaw to allow live music until 10:30 at 190 Lions Bay Avenue on July 13th, 2019. To allow angled parking at Lions Bay Avenue, excluding cul-de-sacs, no parking areas and fire hydrants, and waive guest parking passes for visitors during this time for the Lions Bay House concert.
Good, I'll second. Yep. Second, any discussion, CIO?
I'll wait till after Councillor
No, I
Baines.
just look at my hand up to second it.
Oh, okay.
Norm, or, and then
The guy at the end.
I don't know what you were about to say, Peter, but I think last time I questioned if we needed some consistency on this, especially the parking part of it. Because one time you have to get to permits, the other time we just ignore it. That was the one question. And then the other question I have is, when this previously came up, there was talk about the insurance aspect, and did the village get themselves in any kind of liability situation by accepting the use of, I was going to use the word condoning, but I don't mean to condoning it, just by the fact that we approve these concerts. Is there any way that we tripping over that? Because we know that from previous discussion that there was a big sticking point about these concerts. Not the owners, whether the owners actually get the insurances that we think the village thought they should get or not. So those are my kind of two questions, and I just feel like I personally am not quite sure where we are and what the rules are and what we're doing. Heaven forbid that I'm the one that suggests we go write another policy or a bylaw. But I think there's going to be a lot of this, and I'm not sure we have a consistent message.
I think that pursuant to that issue being raised last time, I haven't yet had an opportunity to seek any legal advice on that, but it is something that I think we do need clarity on. The comment that I was going to make about the parking was that at this location, I'm not sure that angle parking is in front of 190 is feasible without...
That's not feasible at all.
Without ruining the grass. Any angle parking would need to be at the...
Closer to the park.
Close to the park, yeah. So I was going to suggest that that caveat be included. But in terms of...
how many people are coming? Do they need angled parking?
These things, maybe 40,
possibly up to 50 guests.
I know that
probably 25 cars.
It is a Saturday evening, so depending on the weather, that always gonna have a big effect on how many people are out and about. My gut feeling is that providing parking dispensation to people who are having events isn't necessarily condoning the event itself, although at some point along that spectrum of consideration, I think there is a line somewhere. I'm just not sure where it is. And that's why I intend to seek some professional opinion on that, using the free legal advice consultation service that we have available to us. So I will return with some information in that respect, and if council wants to defer it until after that, that's an option, or deal with it now.
I was just going to mention waiving the guest passes. We had talked about that, but it is a Saturday. I think we've only waived them when it was during a weekday. The bylaw officers will be there. It's going to be a busy weekend. I think it would be difficult for them to know the cars. I think they would need guest parking passes.
And our intent was to provide Mrs. Broughton with extra guest parking passes so that she could hand them out.
I think on that one, to Councillor Abbott's point, we're kind of going left and right. For the events committee, we said no passes needed, but that was the first one up. Councillor Bormayer got loaded with passes. This one, I'm thinking we should be doing passes as well for continuity.
Yeah.
The next one up will be the fire chief's request, probably for September, and I can't remember what he always does.
Firefighter's Day.
So maybe one more, well, so a few sessions. So I think, I'm kind of on Councillor Abbott's page on this one. Let's be, contiguous with what we're trying to do here. So to this, I think we want allow the angled parking. So angled parking goes no. You think? CAO?
Well, there's really no signage in place to direct people at the beginning of Lions Bay Avenue close to the park even. So I've never been present while it's actually the first few cars come in and park on an angle. I don't know how that gets started.
I think I could see the events committee getting out there early for their thing, and they said they're going to because they recognize it, and I think somebody that thinks at 4 o'clock this might be a good idea, it's too late.
Yeah, I think probably take out the angle parking, but I think that that's a discussion point for the Public Works Manager and myself to talk about whether or not we should just create an angle parking area at the beginning of Lions Bay Avenue. I don't know how council feels about that.
A permanent one?
Yeah.
It'd be fun.
Have signage appropriate.
It's more spots. It also makes it damn hard for those people with boat trailers to park there. Dear to my own heart.
We go against that.
Like
You
9
see
spots on a
some guy
Sunday?
take it up 3 spots and thinking, really? Okay, so,
So is that direction that we're going? We're gonna create our angle parking?
I think unless I hear something to the contrary from council, that's something that we should look at, what's involved with
I think
that.
that's a work in progress for you guys. That's an
Okay.
operational thing. Council, everybody nods, yes, fine. Take that as a yes. Okay, so then let's go back to this one. So I think,
Sorry. So we could have that angled parking in place by July 13th, if you want to include that in the resolution.
Well, that we wouldn't need to, because
If
it
it
would
was in
just
place.
simply be self-evident as to where you can park on the street.
Okay.
well, we're pitching them across the plate, aren't we?
Sorry.
Okay, so obviously we could allow angled parking.
I think what we're down to here is simply that council relax the noise bylaw on the date in question. And we don't even really need to know
Stopping at
the purpose.
2019.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
so
the
it's,
sentence, if you want to dispense with the request at this point in time, as opposed to tabling it.
I'm fine with stopping at 2019, send them the passes, if that's where, again, council, I think we're going to the passes versus, okay, good. All right, so I think this is amended to, per Councillor Barmier's motion to stop at 2019, delete the rest. So amended, any discussion? I'll call a motion, all in favor? Done, thanks, passed. Thank you very much, and was there one more sneaky piece of correspondence? There it
Yes,
was.
former Mayor Carl Burr, and I've responded to him.
Good, and that goes in with the feedback, Donna, on that topic. And which brings us to new business. There being none, public questions, Deirdre. There being none, can I have a motion to adjourn? Second, we're done.